I'm going to begin with the most difficult conversation I have right now, which is a guy I just love watching in Gardner Minshew, but on the other side of that is my Denver Broncos, who fell to 0-4 as he shredded them late in this game. You broke him down, including with great mustache comes great responsibility. Terrific quote. What is Gardner Minshew doing right now so well?
So, when we talk about guys coming out of the draft and throwing the ball downfield, how quickly do you mention arm strength? Hey, Josh Allen has a cannon for an arm. This guy's got a cannon for an arm. Carson Wentz, cannon for an arm. But Gardner Minshew right now is the best passer throwing the ball 10+ yards down the field, and he probably has a below average NFL arm. I mean, he's got some crow hop throws that he's got, just to get the ball down the field. But he's got anticipation. He has accuracy. He's got that pocket movement, sees the field well. So he has just been spectacular throwing the ball 10+ yards down the field. He was hitting cover 2 shots. He's hitting posts. He's throwing the ball with touch, dropping it in a bucket. So Minshew's just been spectacular. And then, against Denver, we saw that Brett Favre-ish type of play where he's maneuvering the pocket, making magic happen, finding an open man. He just looks comfortable out there. Doesn't look like a 6th-round rookie, and he's throwing the ball accurately down the field.
I'm glad Dave, as the Broncos fan, brought up Minshew. I actually want to ask you about the other quarterback, Joe Flacco. The Broncos are 0-4, and so everybody out there is just, oh, Flacco sucks. It's Flacco. And I'm not saying he's been great, but, I mean, Steve, in both their home games, he led them down for the go-ahead, score, and then the defense wasn't able to shut the door on him. And I think against the Jags, what do you have, 3 touchdown passes? I don't know if he had 300 yards. Where is Flacco right now? Is he awful? Is he okay? Is he good?
He's in the middle of the pack. He's been better than I expected. And I thought that Flacco could have a slight rejuvenation this year, kind of back to 2014 was probably the last year where he was pretty good. So I would say, he had a bad pick on Sunday too, but other than a handful of throws, he's done a pretty good job of taking care of the ball. He could still stand to be more aggressive, kind of old school Flacco, who's throwing the ball down the field a little bit more. But I think he's done a nice job taking care of the ball. And to your point, Ross, he did a nice job leading comebacks. And, he always kind of had that in him in Baltimore, late in the game, he could, pull out some magic. And he's done that. He's just, been screwed by the defense and, the opposing team's kickers, essentially losing games for them or winning, losing for Denver.
Oddly, a quarterback that has been discussed as much as anyone in the game over the last couple of weeks is Kirk Cousins. And you talk about Flacco last having it in 2014. Well, look, if you go back to 2015 and 16 with Cousins with Washington, a guy that threw for 9,000 yards over those 2 seasons, threw for 54 touchdowns combined in 2 seasons, who looked like a guy that, frankly, again, back to the Denver Broncos, who wanted to pay him that money. Where has he changed? Or is he the guy that he always was? Because he looks like a guy who's completely lost. 10 passes in week 1 win. And you've got Adam Thielen ripping him. You've got him apologizing to the team. Where is Kirk Cousins worse than when he was with Washington?
So Cousins has always been this classic case of when you compare PFF grades to stats, Cousins always seems to be the guy that looks better statistically. And we saw that on Sunday. I tweeted out, he came out of that game with a 91.6 passer rating. I mean, if you watch that game, you're like, okay, they can't move the ball. He's fumbling in the pocket. This team can do nothing offensively, but he hit a 4th down go ball, which was nice, but that was pretty much it for him. And he still managed a 91.6 passer rating. To me, that's kind of like summed up Kirk Cousins' career. This inefficient game that still, by the end of it, might look good statistically. So he's got 3 or 4 finishes in the top 10 in passer rating in his career, but only 1 top 10 finish in PFF grade. So again, I think our context on a play-by-play basis says he's probably not as good as the stats have shown through the years, but if you just look at the statistics, you're like, hey, I can talk myself into this guy. He does have this ability to just not step up, the opposite of what I just described in Flacco, the not stepping up in road games at Chicago, at Green Bay. I always joke that those are the games that the Vikings were paying for, right? To go into Green Bay, to go into Chicago, and those have been his by far his worst games throughout his career. So I think ultimately Cousins is going to start, maybe beaten up on some bad teams. Maybe this week against the Giants, he throws 4 touchdowns. Before you know it, you're like, hey, look, he's 8th in passer rating again. How bad could he be? But there is something to Cousins in these big games, road games against good teams. There's just something missing there, and I think we saw that again on Sunday.
Steve, I know we have a limited sample size on him in the NFL in terms of Dwayne Haskins playing a little bit Sunday, playing in the preseason. I guess I'm just curious as to what the book was on Haskins coming out of Ohio State. I know PFF does a terrific job doing grades for all the Division I teams as well. What did you guys have on Haskins?
So he had a very good grade last year at Ohio State, not as good as the stats would show. We had Ohio State fans yelling at us like crazy last year saying, look at this guy. He's our Heisman winner. He's got 50 touchdowns, or Heisman contender. But the thing with Haskins, if you can separate him from his offense, Ohio State's offense was spectacular. They had guys like Paris Campbell creating a crazy amount of yards after the catch. I think the book on Haskins, he reminded me a lot of Sam Bradford, where if you give him a clean pocket, he'll throw NFL-type routes, a dig route with zip, and it just looks great. And you're just like, hey, that's an NFL throw. That's an NFL guy. But once you put him under a little bit of duress, and we saw that for him last year at Purdue, at Penn State, there were some road games where he kind of struggled a little bit, and then when he faced pressure, he struggled a little bit. Anytime he had to move off his spot. So I always felt like that might limit his ceiling. It's a similar breakdown for me as Josh Rosen. I think Rosen, give him a clean pocket, he'll do some NFL things, but if he's got to create outside of structure, it was a bit of a question mark. So that's where I see Haskins right now. If he gets put in this incredible situation with a nice O-line and a bunch of playmakers, a few more Terry McLaurins to throw to, then you could see some good seasons from him. But I think, he needs some work and he needs some help around him.